of BAYMEC, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. On behalf of the board, on behalf of the Westminster Presbyterian Church and Pastor Brian, thanks very much for attending tonight, and we appreciate that. Also, I've been asked to make an announcement. If you're looking for a restroom, it's straight through here, so we're going to know everyone who's going to the restroom tonight. So, you know, if you feel that need, we're not going to say anything, so don't worry about that. Tonight is a really important opportunity for us, for those in attendance, and also for those who are here on our panel. We invited these candidates for mayor of San Jose to join us and answer a few questions and have them share with us why they want to be the next mayor of the 10th largest city in the United States. Tonight, we'll also help BAYMEC determine who we're going to endorse for mayor of San Jose. Stay tuned in the next few days for that announcement. We have a very unusual situation this year. And why is it unusual? We have endorsed every one of these candidates previously for different offices. 3 of them for city council, and 1 of them, Cindy, for supervisor, and also her previous run a few years ago for mayor. So it's very exciting for us to have these 4 candidates here tonight. I'm excited to go ahead and introduce to you our moderator for the evening, Dr. Garrett Percival, who is a professor and chair of the Department of Political Science at our own San Jose State University. And Dr. Percival was kind enough to help us this evening and has long been a supporter of BAYMEC and our mission. Also, before we continue, I do want to introduce our co-founders of BAYMEC that are also here tonight. We have Wigsy Sievertson over here on my right, and Ken Yeager, who is in the back. Without these 2 folks, BAYMEC wouldn't be here today. And we're very excited for the work that we've done over the past 38 years now. It's incredible. Thank you both for starting this. And we as a BAYMEC board continue to do what we do. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the candidates and let's welcome Dr. Percival.
Thank you, Drew. My name, as Drew mentioned, my name is Garrett Percival. It's a real pleasure to be here this evening, and I wanted to thank BAYMEC for inviting me to participate. I'll just say a few comments, sort of setting the stage for tonight's event. I think as a lot of us know, democracy asks a lot of us as participants, and asks that we become and stay engaged with civic life, that we become informed about the issues and challenges that confront us in our community, and that we participate in elections that place our representatives in power. And when information is increasingly lobbed in small snippets through social media, campaign flyers, 10-second sound bites on television, it's often a challenge for many voters to make sense of all of that. And so for that reason, forums like this one that offers voters and residents a chance to hear from candidates directly, I think serve as important suppliers of information for our democracy. So I think the candidates here tonight. San Jose's mayor is the only official elected by voters of the entire city, and what the mayor does really matters. And in many ways, our local politics and our local ordinances have a more profound effect on our daily life and than the laws and policies made in our national politics. And this is one of the primary reasons why becoming informed about how these candidates want to lead the city into the future is so important. So with that said, I would like to briefly introduce the 4 candidates here with us this evening. And these candidates represent 4 of the 6 who are officially running for mayor this year, 2022. And in alphabetical order, they're Cindy Chavez, who is currently Santa Clara County Supervisor representing District 2, where she is first elected in 2013. So welcome. Deb Davis is a current member of the San Jose City Council representing District 6, where she was first elected in 2016. Matt Mahan is a current member of the City Council as well, representing District 10, where he was first elected in 2020. And Raul Perales is a current member of the San Jose City Council representing District 3, where he was first elected in 2014. So again, welcome all. like to take just a minute or two to explain the structure of the forum this evening. We have about an hour to allocate to our questions and remarks. I'll be asking several questions, each drafted by organizers of this event, BAYMEC. Each of our 4 candidates will get 2 minutes to respond to each question. And for each question, I will rotate the order of candidate responses, which was decided just a few minutes ago. So I'll try to keep track of that. We have Jeremy sitting up front here, who will be keeping time for us and will be holding up a sign when there's 30 seconds remaining and another when time has expired. And so we have this nice flat screen TV up here with the time. And at that time, I'll ask the candidates to conclude their remarks. And I really appreciate the candidates' help in sticking to our time limitations. In addition, each candidate will receive up to 2 45-second rebuttals that they can use during the forum. But I would ask that before rebuttals are used, that each candidate has had an opportunity to answer each of the questions. So the 4 of you would all get a chance to answer first. Once that is done, if you want to use one of your rebuttals from one of the earlier comments in relation to that question, you can do so, and I will keep track of those. So again, 2 rebuttal opportunities during the forum. All right, well, with that said, we will turn it over and begin with our first question, starting with Supervisor Chavez. Please introduce yourself and briefly explain why you are running for mayor of the city of San Jose. We have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And are we allowed to pull these off?
I think they want us to
Stay and don't
I
move.
asked
Okay.
earlier.
All right, I just wanted to know, I'm trying not to mess around with your sound system. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. And I hope we have a chance to talk tonight about the biggest challenges facing San Jose. And that will be everything from public safety to housing to homelessness and just the cleanliness of the city. But in particular, because BAYMEC is a civil rights organization, and a civil rights organization that so many of us in this community have really benefited from. They told me not to touch this. I have a lot of helpers. Closer, all right. Is that better? All right, thank you. Is that better, everyone? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Did you hear enough of what I said? I can keep going. Okay. I've got all these stage mothers. Yes, no. All right. But because you are a civil rights organization, I thought maybe what I would take a moment to do is talk about the history that we've shared in really changing hearts and minds in Santa Clara County. I could go back many years to my work on the Board of Supervisors, where one of my bodies of work was actually working to make sure that we were providing information to the community about AIDS in multiple languages. But I think what's probably more important is to start when I was on the City Council. That year, the Night Initiative was on the ballot. And I, as a new elected official, played a leadership role at the statewide level in fighting that initiative. I could talk a little bit about serving with Ken and fighting for spousal benefits as a member of the San Jose City Council, or standing with Ken as we raised the pride flag for the first time over the city of San Jose and its proclamation. The point is, at the time that we were having these battles, 2/3 of our community voted the wrong way. And I want you to know that I will stand with you as I did then when people were against us, and continue to build a movement where people are for us.
Councilmember Perales.
All right, I'll get this really close. Well, good evening. My name is Raul Perales, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of San Jose. Come from a humble working class immigrant family. My father immigrated from Mexico when he was 12. He grew up here picking the crops in the Valley of the Heart's Delight, and we grew up humbly in a rent-controlled fourplex over in West San Jose. And I'm proud to be the first in my family to be able to attend college and graduate from right here at San Jose State University. Graduated with a degree in math, and I started my career as a teacher, a substitute high school teacher here in Santa Clara County. 2 years later, I went back to school to become an emergency medical technician, and that led me to my next career, which was as a San Jose police officer, where I served for 8 years. And during those 8 years, I continued to sub with alternative education in Santa Clara County, including the Boys Ranch, community day schools, and juvenile hall. And to date, I'm still the only active duty police officer to ever both serve active duty and substitute in juvenile hall. In 2010, I received a notice of intended termination, a pink slip from the city of San Jose during the recession, and that's really what motivated me to get involved into local politics. And I ran a challenging race in 2014, was able to be successful, and have now served as the downtown council representative for the last 7 years. This is my 8th and final year. I am raising my 2 children, a 3.5-year-old son and an 8-week-old daughter, and we're dealing with all the challenges here that we have in the city, and it's personal for me, what we're dealing with. And that's why I decided to run. I've seen the impact that a mayor can have to lead our city and set a trajectory for decades to come, and I want to be able to take on the challenges that we face today, addressing homelessness and reversing that crisis, making San Jose a place where everybody can afford to live, making us the safest big city in America once again, and being able to ensure that we can grow equitably and in a way that's sustainable for all of us for years to come. Thank you.
Councilmember Mahan.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us. Can you hear me okay? In the back? Great. Okay. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Matt Mahan, and I am running for mayor because I'm concerned about the direction our city's heading in. I first came to San Jose as a work-study scholarship student all the way from Watsonville. I came by bus 4 hours a day, round trip over Highway 17 to come here for the same reason families have for generations, which is for opportunity. I was lucky to get a scholarship to Bellarmine here, where as student body president, I was a vocal advocate for inclusion on a campus that was often not as inclusive as it should have been, given its values, as I think my former teacher, Mr. Pinkston, can attest. I was lucky to go on to Harvard as a work-study scholarship student, where again, I advocated for inclusivity. I ran partly on a platform of fighting for the first gender-neutral bathrooms at Harvard, and was proud to be elected with the support of the LGBTQ student group. After college, I came back as a public school teacher, kept my classroom open in Eastside San Jose late every day to be a safe place for students who often didn't have anywhere else to go. From there, I went into the tech sector and built tools to promote civic engagement and to help residents participate in their democracy and hold their government accountable for results. And as I've been at City Hall for the last year and a half, I've seen a City Hall full of great, well-intended people who work really hard, but frankly, a lack of focus, measurement, and accountability for results. And I believe that if we're going to address housing affordability, homelessness, crime, trash, infrastructure, so many of the challenges that seem to be getting worse despite the fact that we're spending more than ever, I think it's going to require culture change in local government. It's going to require us to be very disciplined about laying out goals, measuring our performance, and holding ourselves to a higher standard of accountability. And that's really what my campaign is all about. Thank you for having me.
Councilmember Davis.
Good evening. I'm Councilwoman Dev Davis. One of the things that I have learned as a council member over the last 5+ years is that big problems only get bigger during difficult times. I think we've all learned that during the pandemic. But what I've also learned is that even in the worst of times, good things can happen when we work together. San Jose is facing big problems. I think we all know that. Homelessness, blight, public safety among them. And City Hall really has to begin to help, not hinder our growth as a city. We must work together because it is time to restore San Jose's status. Yes, its status as the safest big city in America, but also our status as a safe, clean, and thriving city. To restore San Jose as mayor, I will focus on rebuilding public safety, protecting our single-family homes, and tackling our growing homelessness problem. I just think there's no time to waste. The future of our city is too important to waste time. Although I was born and raised in North Dakota, my husband and I have found our home here in San Jose for the last 18 years, and we're happily raising our 2 teens here. We have a son and a daughter. I'm working to leave our kids and your kids and all of our kids in San Jose a city that they can be proud of, a city that is safe, clean, and thriving. And again, because we're here with BAYMEC, a city that is inclusive. And that's why I've worked together with the Billy DeFrank Center, which is in my district, to ensure that we can build an affordable housing project that is for both families and seniors that's LGBTQ plus friendly. That's why I have sponsored the Trans Day of Visibility at City Hall, and that's why I raise the pride flag every year at City Hall. Thank you.
All right, thank you. LGBTQ plus youth are consistently overrepresented in our homeless population. And despite historic investments in services for the unhoused, it can seem like the number of people living on the streets is only increasing. Every candidate for mayor has said homelessness is a top priority. The outgoing mayor has called it our greatest failure. What is your plan, and how is it different from what's already being done? And we'll begin with Councilmember Perales with 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And first off, to speak to the fact that you brought up, where we know we have particular demographics that are overrepresented. And in fact, because of that, Supervisor Chavez and myself worked to create the very first LGBTQ shelter, homeless shelter in our county, right in my district in downtown San Jose, a conversion of a city property called the Haven House. And we recognize that. It's insufficient. We know we need to do more, but that's the kind of model that we need to set, and we need to continue that across the county. What I would do coming into office immediately would be 2 things. Number one, it would be to allow sanctioned encampments throughout the city. I've been a proponent of this for years, have failed to get enough support from our mayor and a majority of my council colleagues, and I think that what we are doing out there today is failing. We are wasting time and money by simply abating people and telling them we don't know where they can go. That's the first question they asked us. We need to create those type of entry-level locations where we can relocate people. Secondly, I would create a homelessness task force to convene all of the different stakeholders from the government field, nonprofit, public sector, private, philanthropic, and our church groups. All the individuals that we know that are trying to help, but we have a lot of work happening in silos today. I would use those 2 efforts to ensure that we can truly make a dent and be able to reverse this trend that we've been seeing in homelessness. Since 2015, we've gone from 4,000 to over 7,000 homeless in the city of San Jose. The next mayor is not going to be able to solve homelessness, but we can absolutely reverse the trend. We need to be able to take head on the issue of mental health. And we're not going to be able to do that alone either. We need to work in partnership with the county to ensure that we're not allowing people to suffer on our streets. Thank you.
Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you for the question. Our approach to homelessness is failing. We are halfway through our second 5-year plan for ending homelessness in our community. We've spent billions of dollars, and we have more people on the streets today than when we started. We're spending a huge amount of the money building brand new apartments at a cost that is now coming in at $850,000 a door. That's more expensive than it costs market rate developers to build luxury, so-called luxury condos. We are not being radically pragmatic enough. We're also spending a lot of money, as Councilor Perales just said, just managing the problem, abating encampments, picking up trash, emergency room visits for a few hours. This is not addressing root causes. We do need to shelter people because we know that addiction treatment, job training, all the rest doesn't work if people are living in a tent in the insecurity and instability of living on the streets. But we should be building that shelter with prefabricated modular units on government-owned land. I've advocated that if this is a crisis, which I think it is, there should be no real barriers to looking at sites like the county fairgrounds and up by the wastewater treatment facility. And I found a site in my own district that's 1.5 acres. We should be identifying government-owned land across the county immediately at scale. We need about 50 acres. Prefab modular units we could scale up to thousands at just the cost of Measure A. And we need more inpatient placements for addiction and mental illness and job training, the kinds of services that actually empower people to get back on their own 2 feet. And we need to get to a point where we have an expectation that government is responsible for providing safe, secure shelter for every person on our streets. And when it's provided, people have a responsibility for using it. I'm not talking about criminalizing homelessness, but we should give people options and not allow 6,000 people to be in unmanaged encampments across the city. It's completely untenable, it's inhumane, it's expensive, it's not working. We need a very different direction.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. First and foremost, we absolutely need more coordination, not just between the city and the county, but also with our nonprofits and with our faith leaders. We have a lot of people working on homelessness in our city and in our county, and we don't have a lot of coordination. So as mayor, that would be my top priority for addressing this issue. I agree we need more modular housing, but I also agree that we need more permanent supportive housing. We have tried modular housing and we are doing it. We have 3 sites that we were able to get up and running during the pandemic. They're great, they're quick, but they only add up to 345 beds at this current time. And the great thing about permanent supportive housing is that you can go up instead of only going out. So I think it's important to do that. Wherever the site is, we need safety, sanitation, and services. And that is why the coordination with the county is so important, because the city can provide the safety and the sanitation, and the county needs to provide the services. We need to be able to reintegrate people back into society. So the services that they need are sometimes mental health, sometimes drug addiction, sometimes both. And then obviously people who are able to work need to be connected with jobs and job training as well. And all of those things need to happen. We do need to have some tough love with our compassion. That's something we're not doing right now. It is not okay to say no when you are offered housing. You need to be in housing. It's not okay to be in our parks, on our streets, along our creeks. And lastly, I'll say, I think it's great that we have an LGBTQ shelter. We need all shelters to be LGBTQ friendly and LGBTQ safe. And the staff in all of those places need to be trained accordingly to be able to keep the LGBTQ clients safe, whether it's from other clients or whether it's just from other staff members, so that we can ensure that there is a healthy culture in all of those shelters.
Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. All right. So let me just start by saying this. This is a very, very complex problem. And as a community, I think we have done some things that are moving in the right direction, and I want to talk about what those things are and then talk about what I think needs to be done. First, we do need to continue to build affordable housing for low-income people. This state has built luxury housing for generations. We treated it like it was going to be a trickle-down opportunity for people at the bottom to get housing. And just as a reminder, for people who are eligible for very low-income housing, they're preschool teachers, they're essential workers that work in grocery stores, so we absolutely need to keep building housing, period. We need to continue to build interim housing because we do have to get people off the streets and to stop their suffering. We need to make sure that we're building with the interim housing, that we're also making sure that we're doing more as it relates to mental health services, and we are, and something we've been pursuing at the county, to continue to expand the number of locked beds we have, because we have a lot of people who are so seriously mentally ill that they really need help, and the longer they're on the streets, the further they decompensate. But the last thing, and the most important thing we can do, is prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. During COVID-19, we raised a lot of money, we paid rents, we paid mortgages, and frankly, for about $5,000 a family, we were able to keep people housed throughout the year. What that means is that we have some naturally affordable housing that exists in our community. We need to continue to invest in it so people can stay in those homes. Just to focus on the LGBTQ community, I was happy to work on Haven House with Raul and with Dev on the hub that we're building out, because what we know is a number of these people that are becoming homeless are foster youth. We need to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks. We're moving very swiftly in that direction. We have a lot more to do on this issue, certainly, but I believe we can get this done on our watch.
Okay, next. San Jose is home to one of the hottest real estate markets in the country. And for years, rising prices have posed a major hurdle to home ownership. And for many, the dream of owning their own home is exactly that, a dream. For older LGBTQ+ adults, we have a lack of inclusive spaces. What will you do to address housing affordability and its disproportionate impact to communities like ours? And how specifically does that differ from the status quo and your opponent's proposals? And we'll begin this time with Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you. Well, I think your final point there is an important one, which is that when we have a lack of affordable housing, it disproportionately harms those who have been traditionally marginalized. And I think that's an important point to reinforce. The solution to the problem of housing in our community is far and away about supply. We have added 6 jobs in our region for every 1 home that we have built. It's unsustainable. As we keep adding jobs, and towns like Cupertino add 10,000 jobs and don't build any more housing, we're exacerbating a crisis that is pushing people, particularly more vulnerable people, into economic insecurity and homelessness. And so the answer, I don't agree with this concept that building market rate apartments is somehow some crazy theory of trickle-down economics. The truth is, virtually all of the naturally affordable housing in our community today was built by market rate developers. They just built it 50, 60 years ago when the cost of land, labor, and materials was very low and that housing stock aged into affordability. 97% of the housing in our state was built with private investment by private developers. And I'm all for affordable housing, for subsidizing housing, but the truth is it's always going to be a small portion of the housing that we need. And in San Jose, the answer is not further sprawl. I don't even think it's just kind of moderately densifying with a few fourplexes out in the suburban parts of the city. It's building up. It's building densely in places like downtown, urban villages, along our transit corridors. The future is buildings like the Miro Towers across the street from City Hall, where on an acre and a half, 1,000 people will live when that building is fully leased up. And we at City Hall are frankly in the way. $100,000 worth of fees per unit, 12 months plus of environmental review, just endless barriers to bringing the investment in housing that we need in our city. And that's how we're going to ultimately solve the problem, is removing those barriers.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. At the end of the day, I think it's important just to note that the city of San Jose has a very small role in the affordability of the housing market. And that's not something that we can change because we are part of the larger Bay Area. As my colleague mentioned, the number of jobs that have been created in this region far outstrips the housing that has been created. And that's not something that we're going to be able to change. So I think it's important just to get that out on the table. However, it is important for us to do everything we can in our power to simplify our process and to streamline our process for permits, approvals, and building inspections so that as people can build, whether they're subsidized affordable housing developments or market rate developments, so that they can build as quickly as possible. And that's a process, frankly, that has gotten, unfortunately, more difficult over the time during COVID, as opposed to less difficult when we had the ability to really retool. We did not. So that's something that I'm already working on with our city manager and our deputy city manager. What I think we need to do, frankly, is throw out our approval process and say it can only take 6 months to get to approvals. Here's how we do it. We just need to start there. I will say, what is really important to me is to follow our general plan. We have urban villages in our general plan, as my colleague mentioned, that are dense, that call for dense building near transit. That's really important. I don't support SB 9 and the elimination of single-family home zoning citywide. That doesn't fit with our general plan. It basically throws our general plan out the window. But we need a mix of both market rate and affordable/subsidized housing. That's really important for our city because we need all types of workers in our city and we need all types of people in our city. So in order to preserve our diversity, we need all types of housing.
Supervisor Chavez.
Jeez. So building affordable housing is a critically important tool for us, and we do as a city need to dig in and do it faster and do it better. So let me just talk about the city's role and then what I think the private sector and nonprofit sector can help with. As it relates to the city, one of the challenges is that the planning department has 20% vacancy rate right now. And what that means is that for everybody who wants to build anything, the wait is longer and longer and longer. And one of the challenges we have is we train these amazing young people in the art of planning, and then they get hired by somebody else, and then the poor developer, and I don't often use those two words together, has to come and start with someone brand new, and everybody is exercised over it. So part of what we need to do in the interim is we need to bring in some extra help. In the long term, we need to fully build out planning, building, and code enforcement and really treat that department as the golden goose it could be to helping so many in the community, and that includes being able to maintain the employees. The second thing is that I really agree with the point that Dev just raised about how long it takes to get through our process. When I was on the city council, one of the questions I asked is if they could process map for me what a developer has to go through to get a home, get a project built, and they were unable to do it. That tells you that you have a problem in terms of process. So I think cleaning that up is really important. But the last thing I want to say is the government absolutely plays a leadership role in getting affordable housing built. And just remember that here in this community, we had a vision around workforce housing. That workforce housing got built all on the east side of San Jose, and it was not built luxury housing. It was intended to be within a certain cost range, and we can get there again. We just have to be very, very persistent.
Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that we have a supply problem, but I don't agree that towers like Mayoral towers are the solution. Unless you have over $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment, that's not going to work for you. That's not going to help trickle down to affordable housing. I also agree that we need to streamline the process and have been an advocate of attempting to bring some general fund dollars into our planning department versus just cost recovery. But if all we do is clear the hurdles, I can guarantee you it's still going to be challenging for affordable housing. Why else would the state have recently passed a number of bills to try to clear some of those hurdles? Because it's not only the planning process that slows down projects, it's a lack of political will. Since I've been on the council, I've built more affordable housing in the city of San Jose than any other council colleague, over 1,600 units of affordable housing. And I can guarantee you almost every single one of those came with staunch community opposition from people that didn't want to see low-income residents in their neighborhood. I had to have the political will to stand up to pass these types of projects to get them through. My colleagues on the council have had the opportunity to do that as well. But God forbid we're taking a long time with market rate projects. We're killing affordable projects. We're killing permanent supportive housing projects. We need the political will to be able to have the same success that I've had over the last 7 years on the council to translate that citywide. And that's why I do stand out, and I'm proud to stand out to be supportive of SB 9. I grew up in what you would call opportunity housing, in a rent-controlled fourplex in West San Jose that would have been, ideally before, a large single-family two-story house. I've understood the importance of affordable housing, and that's why I've been a staunch supporter of it all along. I am the sole supporter to be able to advocate for COPA, our Community Opportunity Purchase Act, which is delayed at the moment, but as that comes forward, likely will be one of the strongest voices and one of the few voices in support of that. I will continue to be a staunch supporter of affordable housing as your mayor as well.
Can I rebut? Yep. Yeah, and I'm
Rebuttal? Yeah.
less rebutting what Councilmember Perales just said, but I just want to clarify. I'll just speak for myself here. I've had 4 opportunities since taking office to support affordable housing projects in my district, have supported all of them. I also proactively found a site that was 1.5 acres on which we can build transitional housing for the homeless, and by the way, we can stack those modular units to a density of about 150 units to the acre, which is pretty good for low-cost transitional housing. But we should be clear about the numbers. There's only so much public tax revenue. We have only been able and are only willing to tax ourselves so much that in a city like San Jose, we'll be able to subsidize maybe 500 units of affordable housing a year. That's great, but we used to build 5,000 units a year, and that's because market rate developers would go get loans to build that housing. We need to enable that again, or we're never going to solve this problem.
Thank you. All right, our next question is coming out of the pandemic. San Jose, like many cities, is facing rising crime while at the same time trying to reimagine policing. What is your plan when it comes to policing and crime in San Jose? And how does it balance with the previously mentioned issues, the ones we were just chatting about? And we'll start This time with Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. Public safety is the primary responsibility of the city. It's really the first thing that we have to do is provide safety for our residents. And so that is why adding 250 police officers over the course of my 2 terms would be the top priority for my mayoral office. We have to add strategically to our police department. And by the way, our training in our police department is stellar, and Gabrielle also helps with that. We ensure that our police department has a good, not perfect, of course, but a very good culture and a very high standard of conduct. And I think it's important to ensure that we maintain that. And that's why we have such difficulty getting through the process to actually become a police officer in our city. In adding 250 police officers, I would focus our efforts on traffic enforcement. We have a number of additional deaths this year. We actually have over 24 deaths, traffic fatalities, and that is on pace to far outstrip our unfortunate record of last year of 60 traffic fatalities in all of 2021. A vast majority of those, or I should say the majority of those, are older individuals, and it's very important for us to ensure that the 30% of traffic fatalities that are due to speeding get enforced. They are also the first line of defense when it comes to keeping drugs and guns out of our city. That's important. We need more in investigations. We need more officers in our traffic enforcement, investigations, and also our business districts to be able to deter crime. Thank you.
Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. So, let me start by saying how important it is going to be to make sure we continue to hire new officers. And I think one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we're hiring the best and the brightest, and really appreciate that San Jose advertises as being an inclusive agency. I think that's really critical and important, and thank the leaders for getting that work done. The second is that we need to have more meaningful engagement between police officers and the communities they serve. And for a bunch of different reasons, including that the interests of what needs to be addressed in downtown San Jose may be different in West San Jose or East San Jose, and being more customized, I think, is going to be helpful. The other thing is we need officers to respond to the calls they need to respond to. Right now, we have officers responding to mental health calls. Now, we have an innovation, which is the MCAT team, which has 2 officers who are trained to work with mental health professionals to de-escalate and keep people in their homes and get them the services that they need. But we're expanding that this summer to include a trust program, and that program is really done all with mental health professionals, so that and people with lived experience, so that when you make a call, if it's really a mental health call, we can send a community response, bring up those officers to do other calls. The other thing in partnership that I did with the city of San Jose is we opened a recovery station, and that allows us to pick someone up who's high on meth or alcohol, take them to a place where the officers spend about 15 minutes dropping them off instead of an hour and a half trying to book them, where we can sober them up and try to connect them as quickly as we can to services. That recovery station will drive someone to the service they get accepted into, and we need to continue to expand that, not just with the city of San Jose, but with departments all across the county.
Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you. Enhancing public safety and reimagining policing are not in conflict. In fact, they go hand in hand. 5 days after George Floyd was murdered, I actually issued the memo that started the process here in our city of reimagining policing. And why? Because I have the firsthand experience of what we can do to reimagine policing, to enhance public safety in our community. I still serve today as a reserve officer. The first in our city's history to be an active duty reserve officer, as well as serve on the council. And I served 8 years full-time on the police department. So I've been able to see and experience where we have opportunities for improvement. And in that memo, like what Supervisor Chavez just said, I wrote, it should not be police officers as your first line of defense for somebody suffering from a mental health crisis. We shouldn't be relying on police officers to respond for calls for people that are simply homeless and sleeping in front of somebody's business in the morning. We have relied far too frequently on 911 and police officers as a safety net for every single one of our social failures. And we've seen what the outcome of that has brought about. It's brought about a nation that's asked for change. And I think that change is important. And I think it will not only enhance our community, but I think it will enhance our police departments. There's also reality here in the city of San Jose that got me into elected office. In 2010, when I mentioned I got my pink slip, we went from the safest big city in the country with over 1,400 police officers to, at our lowest point, just over 850 officers. I made it a point of mine to continue to rebuild our police department every single year I've been in office, and I continue to fight for that. We are woefully understaffed. We have 1,150 officers today. We had 1,400 12 years ago. We need to get, at minimum, back up to that 1,400 police officers to ensure that we can adequately staff our police department and be able to protect our residents here in the city of San Jose.
And Council Member Mahan.
Thank you. Well, first I'll say, as a former public school teacher and as a parent, I believe in prevention and investing in our young people. I believe every dollar we spend in our school system, and especially after school and summer programming, will save us money and a lot of unnecessary suffering down the road. But more directly and more immediately, I certainly support adequate police staffing. We are understaffed in San Jose. I fully support differentiating our 911 response, such as the MCAT unit that was mentioned. But the truth is, we will not make our community significantly safer unless we look holistically at the system, where we have some very significant gaps. Currently, the vast majority of people suspected of committing crime and arrested and booked are released right back into the community, and today 50% of releasees are violating the terms of their release by reoffending or failing to appear for their day in court. Last year, SJPD arrested 30 people over 10 times individually. It's not a large number of people. It's actually a small number of people who are very troubled, often with severe addiction or other behavioral health issues, and we're failing to intervene. Frankly, the sobering center we have is not very effective, and SJPD will tell you that they generally don't take people there because it's 10 beds, there's no on-site security, it's completely voluntary, and they kick you out after 24 hours. It's not really meeting people where they are and providing the level of support and intervention that our community needs. I believe we need a secure drug treatment facility that is a third option for a judge between incarcerating someone and just releasing them immediately back into the community, just given what the data is telling us, which is that we have, for a small number of people, this revolving door where we're not helping them and we're not keeping the community safe. And that's a set of policy decisions we've made beyond the city, very much at the county, including the state level as well, and we need to go in a different direction if we're going to actually help people who have underlying challenges, but also keep the community safe.
I'd like to
Yes.
hear that.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you.
45 seconds.
I think it is important to pair our police officers with mental health for 911 calls, mental health workers for 911 calls that deal with mental illness. I'm not so sure that we should have a program that has an all mental health response. I think we all know how many firearms there are in this city and in this country. In fact, in the country, they outnumber the number of people we have, and I think it's dangerous. I've heard from a park ranger that even just visiting a homeless individual in the park to ask them to move along has resulted in getting a gun pulled in them, in their face, pointed in their face. So I think it's important to ensure that our mental health workers are safe, and that's why I support expanding our MCAT to 24/7.
So just
Yeah, Supervisor Chavez, you want
thank you.
rebuttal?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, one thing that I would say is that the programs that we're using and the ones that we're exploring are programs that have been evidence-based, meaning that they're working somewhere else. I too have a concern about public safety, and one thing that I think we could do that could help address that is making sure that when people are dialing a number to get the help they need, that we're using the same number like a 911, so they're better able to clear and determine what's a safe condition. And the other thing, we don't do this now, but we should be doing it, is allowing for a recording when you're calling 911. Right now you can text or you can call, but we can't accept video yet. And we're working on that because I think being able to use video will allow those that are determining where the call goes to better make a decision about that. Thank you.
All right, next. Despite our historic advances for LGBTQ people, transgender people still face significant discrimination in public life. And in many states, transgender people are being targeted with discriminatory legislation. How will you work to combat increasing transgender hate locally and beyond? And we'll begin with Supervisor Chavez.
Yes, thank you for the question. You know, one of the most important opportunities we've had at the county is to make significant and real investments in how we support the LGBTQ+ community. One of them is that we started an office of LGBTQ affairs when Supervisor Yeager was on the board, and in addition to that, we started a gender clinic, and that gender clinic means that anybody who is trans or non-binary has a safe place to go to get medical services, because we found out that during a health assessment that so many people in the community felt like they were dealing with folks who didn't have the information that was appropriate for them to deal with. So I think one of the most important opportunities we have is to continue to embrace and engage the transgender community in all of our services, like the ones I just talked about. In the county now, we have two very specific programs going on. One that's being led by the office, and that is reviewing all of the county's policies so that we can train across the county to be better able to support non-binary, transgender, anybody who is frankly figuring out even who they are, so that we're doing a much better job of making the county a better place for people to want to come and work and stay working with us. The last thing that we're working on that I think is really important is that as part of that, that outreach work that is being done now by Sarah Fernando, is that we're also doing very specific strategies around hiring in the trans community. And what that means for the county is not just doing a better job of hiring, but doing a better job of making a safe environment for folks who want to stay working at the county. Thank you.
Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are two main components where we should be focused. Number one, making our entire city a safe place. We need to ensure that within the city of San Jose, we are the best ally here. And that starts as elected officials, government leaders. That starts with ensuring that we can educate our entire community on the importance of being a safe place, of being a place that's inclusive of everyone. I'm proud to have created the very first LGBTQ+ district within the city of San Jose, our community district, along Post Street in downtown San Jose. Something that on my second year of office, allies came and advocates came to me and said, hey, we don't have a space where we can identify as ours. And we often cling to Post Street. How can we create that? How can the city help us officially create that as an LGBTQ+ space? And we worked on that for years to ensure that here in the city of San Jose, we are actually making those places, identifying that we are accepting, identifying that we love our brothers, our sisters, especially as we know what's going on right now within the trans community. And I think that that's why the other side of the equation is we need to be bold and unapologetic in speaking out against other cities and other states, especially as we see some of the laws that are happening now. We can do that by eliminating our partnership with those cities or those states, banning travel from elected officials or from government officials to those states, making bold statements that make it clear that we will not do business, we will not be an ally or a friend with states and cities that are attacking our trans community or anybody in our LGBTQ+ community.
Councilmember Mann.
Thanks, and I'll just start by speaking from experience. When I was building a startup called Brigade that was a civic engagement platform, one of the harder personnel or HR issues that we went through, I was CEO of the company, was an employee who chose to go through a gender transition, and supporting that individual through that process was educational. It was it was really, frankly, it was very challenging, and I learned a lot, and we worked really hard to build a culture in which we created extra support for this person, team assignment flexibility, work from home flexibility, unpaid leave, and it was a process. I mean, I think so on so many of these issues, it is a process of needing to have the mindset of being open, being willing to listen, to learn, to engage with outside partners like BAYMEC to craft the right policies, ask the right questions, and make sure we're creating the right culture at City Hall. And I think part of what it comes down to is just normalizing conversations about these issues and having a mayor who's willing to lean in and partner with organizations, stand with organizations like BAYMEC, and make sure that internally we're speaking up for creating a culture that is inclusive and supportive of a really diverse workforce that we have, frankly, and that makes our entire work environment better for everyone, I believe, and we certainly saw that at my startup. So, you know, I don't think that any of us are have deep policy expertise on every issue that comes before us, but I think what's important is having the mindset and the openness and the willingness to learn and ensure that we stand up for all of our employees and create a really inclusive environment, and that then extends out through the policies that we're creating as a city. Thank you.
And Council Member Davis.
Thank you. First of all, I think other states' recent actions are abhorrent, and I'm glad that we live in the Bay Area. I'm always happy to be living here when I read those headlines. I have supported and sponsored Trans Day of Visibility at City Hall for the very important reason that we have to raise awareness. We have to raise awareness about the need for inclusivity and the needs of our trans community. As a city, I think it's important to ensure that our city employees are aware and are being inclusive and ensuring that all of our services are being delivered in an equitable manner. I also think it's important for us to ensure that our city benefits include the things that our trans community, our trans employees need, so coverage for hormones, for example. And that's something that will help us in hiring qualified individuals of all backgrounds and including gender identity. And I think that's something that we need to ensure at our city. In addition, I really think it's important, I've heard some stories about how some trans individuals were treated by our police department, and I know that we have good training, but we need to continue to evolve and get better. And so I think we need some better trans specific training for our police department, and not just for our new officers, but also the part of the continuing education. I think that it is important for our city to continue to be a safe space and to continue to strive to be even safer and better for not just our trans community, but our entire community, LGBTQ plus community, and others of minority backgrounds, because that is really what makes our city great, is our diversity.
Yeah, Councilmember Perales.
Rebuttal. It's actually a complimentary rebuttal, so maybe it's not typical. But I just wanted to say that I am tremendously proud of the elected officials that I've been able to serve with, and that includes all my colleagues here, and Supervisor Chavez, and people that paved the way for years. I am excited when, like last year at the Pride Parade, I'm able to bring my son, and we're taking pictures, Councilmember Davis and I, and actually we were wearing the same shirt last year, and Councilmember Mahan, and I'll just tell you that it is really something that I'm proud of, that I'm able to serve with individuals like this. And so, sorry again, like I said, it was more of a complimentary one, but I feel very proud of my colleagues here as well.
All right, we are now closing in on the hour, so we're going to turn now to closing statements. A very simple question, I'm sure. Please summarize why you would make the best mayor for the city of San Jose, and we will begin this final round with Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity tonight to be able to engage. And I honestly think, and I've said this many times, that the four of us are well qualified and have a true passion to want to do good here in our city and for you. I think we all have unique personal and professional experiences that we bring to the table, and then policy perspectives that we bring, and ultimately it's up to the voters. It's up to you as you make a decision on who you feel will be the best to lead. The reason I feel that I am best positioned to be able to lead is because I've had a lifetime of experience very unique to our city, both in my personal life, but specifically in my professional life. I have my entire life served this community, have been a public servant, whether it's been a teacher, an EMT, a police officer, or now an elected official. And since I've been in elected office, I have had some of the most success in tackling the challenges that we all agree on that are priority challenges today. Addressing homelessness. I've been able to build the first and the third 100% permanent supportive housing development for formerly homeless here in my district. I piloted the very first tiny home development here in the city of San Jose. Piloted the first overnight warming location and safe parking location here in my district. I've had success in being able to build, as I mentioned earlier, affordable housing. I have served as a police officer and led in both rebuilding our police department and, as I mentioned earlier, on reimagining our police department to make this city one that's safer for all of us. And now I'm very interested in taking my lifetime of personal and professional experiences to help tackle these issues as our mayor and set us on a more successful trajectory for years to come to make San Jose, again, the safest big city, to make it one where everybody can afford to live, and to make it to one, again, that is sustainable and equitable for all of us here. Thank you.
Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and the great questions, and it's an honor to be here with my colleagues as well. I think that I'm the right person to lead the city forward because I'm coming from a very different background. I do have a lot of respect for my colleagues, but I think we're going in the wrong direction, and I think that we cannot continue to pursue the same policies and assume that things are going to get better. I think actually we're spending more than ever and things have been getting worse. And I think we have to be willing to be radically more pragmatic. I built a couple of startup companies in the civic tech space. And every 90 days for many years, I had to go into a board of directors and I didn't know if I was going to walk out with my job. And I had to really strip away all the ideology, all the feelings and the good hopes and all the things I aspirationally wanted to do to get down to what works and what doesn't. And learn how to fail fast and say, this thing we're doing is just too expensive. It's not scalable enough. It's not working in the way that we need it to work. And I think that's what's missing at City Hall today. I've joked that City Hall is a little bit like the Winchester Mystery House of Government now. Every year we tack on a few new rooms. It's a new program, a new initiative, and we just keep multiplying this bureaucracy. And what's missing is accountability for results. I think we need to simplify and be far more pragmatic. When we set a budget, we should set 3 to 5 strategic goals that are published on the city website that you all can see and understand. Our city manager, who's the CEO of the city, ought to come to our council meetings every month with a dashboard and show us progress against those goals. And at the end of 12 months after we've spent billions of your dollars, our raises should be based on how much we move the needle on those goals. I mean, we just have to simplify, streamline, be focused, measure. And I get that government can't just run like a business. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we should set goals, measure, and be accountable for results. And I think we need to really up our game in terms of transparency and accountability as a city. We are in Silicon Valley, and our government needs to start acting like it, frankly. And I think I have the unique background to bring that culture change to City Hall. Thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. I started this evening by saying big problems only get bigger. But I think you and I can agree that by working together, big problems don't even have to remain problems. They can become opportunities, and in particular, opportunities for a safe, clean, and thriving city. I don't belong to a political party because I think it's important to be able to work with everyone. We can rebuild our police department and partner with mental health workers to have the opportunity for a safer city. We can protect our single-family home zoning for the opportunity to be a city of togetherness and diversity in our neighborhoods. And we can jointly tackle homelessness for the opportunity to be a city that is clean and thriving. I think the two most important qualities for a mayor of San Jose are collaboration and communication. I've been able to work with every single person up here on various different policies, And even when I did belong to a political party, it wasn't the one that these folks all belong to. I think it's important for us to be able to work together. I also think communication is important, and the biggest piece of that is being able to listen and learn and adapt. When I was a relatively new council member, I tried to bring a homeless encampment of seniors into my district. That did not go over well. But I spent the next year in people's living rooms talking about homelessness with my residents and learned that once they got over the fear of what was going to happen, they all agreed we need more solutions to homelessness, and they're willing to do it in their neighborhoods as long as there's safety, sanitation, and services. I've taken all that learning, and I'm ready to be the next mayor of San Jose for a safe, clean, and thriving city. Thank you.
And Supervisor Chavez.
Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you for spending so much time with all of us. I really agree with Council Members Perales and Davis on this point, which is that I think all of us have learned how to work together, and I think Councilmember Perales is right that nobody runs for mayor because it's going to be easy. Really, it's a very challenging job. You have to. I mean, lots of people ask you, why are you doing it? All of you are asking, why are you doing it? And the reason that I feel so excited about the opportunity is that as an elected official, I've had an opportunity to make real change in people's lives. We're the most vaccinated large city and the most vaccinated large county in the country, and I led that effort. We have invested in our community millions of dollars in getting people housed. We've housed 14,000 people since 2015 that are homeless. We're not done. We're nowhere close to done. But by being able to dig in, learn, move quickly, get engaged, get people excited, we're able to solve these kinds of challenges. You know, we built, under Ken's leadership, you know, the Gender Health Center. Those are real investments that change real lives. I'm running for mayor because I believe in all of you. I believe that by working together, we're going to be able to address homelessness, affordable housing, public safety, and cleaning up our city, and doing it by bringing people along with us. I'm excited about the opportunity to make the kind of change I know you want to see. As a community, most of you voted for something called Measure A in 2016. It was a housing bond. That housing bond has in process or is building 4,400 units of affordable housing for extremely low income folks who, but for that, would be on the street, mentally ill, and having all kinds of other challenges. It wasn't easy. It's not easy to do the work we're doing now, but doing it together, we're going to be able to make this community a place you're so proud of. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I would like to thank each of our four candidates for joining us this evening: Supervisor Chavez, Council Members Davis, Mahan, and Perales. Thank you. And thank you to BAYMEC again for organizing, and to members of the audience. I hope you join me in saying it's great to be here in real life, I have to say. So it's really great. A quick reminder that Election Day is June 7th, just 43 days from now, and the county will begin mailing ballots by May 9th, and the last day to register to vote for the June 7th primary, if you would like to vote by mail, is May 23rd. And thank you, and have a great rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Percival, for helping us tonight and moderating our debate. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your getting involved in politics and those who are running for the 10th largest city in the United States for mayor. To the candidates, thank you very much for coming tonight. I think we're going to be in good hands, whomever wins, and I look forward to Wednesday night when BAYMEC will get together with the board and make our determinations for our endorsements. So thank you so much. Please feel free to spend a few minutes, if you will. I don't know how long the candidates will have with us tonight. They're very busy. Trying to get this scheduled was crazy. And so if they are able to stay, please chat with them and and there's plenty of wine and soft drinks still left. So thanks again on behalf of BAYMEC and the BAYMEC board.
Is that right?